Welcome to the Tear Talk Podcast with author, coach, and speaker, MaShani Allen. Known as the Golden Scribe, MaShani has over 2 decades of writing experience, and her passion for the craft has given her the opportunity to impart wisdom, affirmation, hope, and confidence into many. Let's listen now as MaShani delves into topics that have impacted her on her Tear Talk journey and helped her discover the power of the pen.
Welcome. So glad to have you join the Tear Talk podcast on today. So today's going to be a little interesting. Today's topic, it's something that I don't think we talk enough about. I believe that with more and more people making the decisions to have conversations about mental health, there are certain topics that are being covered more in mainstream media and conversations and blogs than ever before, but I still don't think it's enough. It's not enough, especially after the whole world just came off of a traumatic experience with COVID. I just think that sometimes we want to be quick to get back to what we considered normal at one time, that we don't take the time to really deal with issues. And just life itself can throw wrenches and can just be painful and bring its own traumas. And I had a situation last week that triggered me badly. And triggers are interesting because a lot of times they can come unexpectedly. It can be something minor that can bring a trigger, like a smell or a memory or an image or a word or a phrase can be a trigger. But for me, it was a situation. It was the repeat of what I thought would be the repeat of a situation that brought a major trigger for me, and it impacted me so deeply that it totally messed up my whole weekend. My stomach was in knots. I was stressed. I was worried. I was concerned. It was actually kind of shocking to me. I didn't expect to have that type of response to where my body responded so much. But I think the issue was once the trigger was in motion, then my mind started to create its own scenario, which had me all the way in left field somewhere, but I wasn't able to bring it back until I was able to have another conversation, which ended up totally shifting the circumstance and situation. It was a complete misunderstanding, but it showed me something. Now, what it triggered was from a situation that I was in probably over 8 or 9 years ago. And the circumstances weren't completely identical, but there were definitely similarities. And in the first circumstance, I wasn't treated fairly. People didn't honor their word. It left me in a very bad financial situation, and I had to make some really hard decisions as a result. And I think what troubled me the most about this situation was it came from someone who was a leader in their church, very notable person, and they handled other people rightly. But for some reason, they just didn't keep their word with me, and they didn't handle me rightly. And I felt that I was about to be in that situation again. And I think I realized how deeply that situation impacted me. Now, I do believe that I've been healed from it, but I think, and if I haven't, I will pray that I am fully healed from it. But one thing I do know was that circumstance was not surface level. It was something that impacted me extremely deep. And I think one reason is, it's one thing when people, don't fully know who you are, don't fully know what you have to offer. But it's another when people are very much aware of who you are, your gifts, your abilities, your graces, and they don't honor that in you. And it's someone that you had high respect for, and then they dishonor you. And that, I think, probably just hurt deeper than I know, because I have a problem when people are supposed to be men and women of God who don't represent God rightly. I'm not talking about in the church. That is its own issue. For me, this was in more of a professional environment. And it was extremely troubling because I was professional and I was very in tune spiritually as well. And I just was not handled rightly. And I felt as though something similar could have possibly taken place. And I was triggered deeply. And it's interesting because I have done a lot of the self work. I've had therapists, I've had counseling, I have a mentor, I journal, I do all of those things to make sure that I'm growing, I'm maturing, I'm staying balanced, I'm addressing the areas that need to be addressed. But that's the thing about triggers. Sometimes you don't know. You don't know. You might not be fully aware of how deeply something or someone impacted you or hurt you. You might not know until you're triggered. And y'all know me and Webster, BFFs. And in this context, the word trigger, it means to cause an intense and unusually negative emotional reaction in someone. And I just was overwhelmed at how triggered I was. And it's kind of interesting because I had a conversation with someone because I was almost in a position where I was going to have to do something outside of what I normally do. And I remember having a conversation and I said, I had to let it be known why I couldn't do that particular task. And I told them, I said, you don't want to see me triggered. And who knew that a few months later, they actually would see what happens when I get triggered. And I didn't say it it was just the truth, because I know it's, for me, when I'm triggered deeply, it can be a really, really bad situation. And I've had circumstances where I have given so much of myself to people, to projects, to the visions, to dreams of others. But in return, it has taken so much from me, and I have lost myself. And that is something that I never want to experience, losing me, because who I am is valuable, who I am is needful, and who I am is necessary. And there should be nothing that I do that requires me to lose me in order to do it. Because I've been made, I've been created, and I've been fashioned for a beautiful purpose in the earth. And if I can't be me in the earth, that's a problem. That means that the earth is missing something. I'm sorry. My dog is trying to get in my room. And here he is. Hi, Candor. Tell the people hi, Candor. Tell the people hi, because you are all in my podcast right now. I'm going to need you to... Okay, so okay. So you might hear some rustling because he is clearly wanting to be a part of this podcast. But it's really, really hard when you can give and give and give and give and people can respond like you are disposable. And I have to be honest and admit that I myself have been on the other side of that coin, and I haven't always treated people fairly. And I have had to go and repent and apologize for that. And that's something that I'm very mindful of even now. I want to let those who are in my life, I want them to be aware of who they are to me and how I honor and how I value what they bring into my life. But I think that it's a really hard place. And I can only speak for me. It's a really hard place when it appears that you're disposable by people of the faith. That is probably one of the most challenging situations to be in, because in all actuality, as believers, well, first of all, as humans, we are all beautifully and wonderfully made in the image of God. What is disappointing is when people who believe in Him choose to treat and mishandle people who are supposed to be brothers and sisters in Christ. And I don't know what it is, but that is extremely, extremely triggering for me. And I think some of it is because of the level of respect or the level of honor that you can have for people in certain positions. And that just causes that pain to be experienced in a different type of way. And I will definitely be speaking to my therapist about this, because I need to learn how to, I don't want to say the word balance, but how to handle when I am triggered. Not that I haven't been triggered before, but I'm learning, because I couldn't even journal it. It was too painful to write. I needed time to process my thoughts, even to be able to write them down. And again, the situation didn't end up being what I thought it was. Again, it was all in my head. But I want to get to the place where I don't go that deep and I don't go that far unnecessarily, and that my body doesn't respond to that degree. Now, I don't know what that is. It's definitely something that I will be looking into. And, I prayed, and I think that's just a little bit of how I'm wired. When something hits that deep, it can be challenging trying to wrangle that back in. And I don't necessarily believe it showed lack of trust in God. I think it was an extreme response of fear. And most triggers are based on a fear or on a pain. And I think that's something that we have to pay attention to for ourselves. It's something that we have to be mindful of those around us, because triggers can be extremely damaging. And I am still processing how impactful and how deep that trigger was for me. And it was so interesting, because I sent myself a text message. I was like, next podcast, we talking about triggers. We are talking about triggers. Now, one thing I do know, I have been healed from a lot of triggers, because there were certain buttons that people could push. There were certain words that people could say that could have me, that could just totally mess up my whole day, my whole week, just have me in a certain type of mood, immediately when I would hear those things. And I'm thankful that I can look at different circumstances and situations and see how much I've grown, because it doesn't have the impact that it used to have. So for that, I'm extremely thankful. But this last one, that was a doozy. It was a real doozy. And I am still, in my mind, still trying to process still trying to process that one, but I think why that hurt, one reason why that situation hurt so deeply is because my value wasn't valued. I think that's the best way to say it. And it wasn't valued by someone who I valued and who I showed that I valued and who I respected highly. And this is why, I've heard it say you never, and this person wasn't someone that was I was a fan of in that text, like someone I followed or anything like that. But sometimes they say you never want to meet your idol, or you never want to meet, someone, like for some people, it's like people in the entertainment industry or the music industry or the sports arena, because sometimes, they don't line up with what they do. And my desire is to be a person that is who I am, regardless of where I am or what I do. And I think it's pretty deceptive when people put on an image, but they aren't the image that they put on. And I think that we have to really desire to be those people who match, like our words match our actions. Our actions match our words. Our character matches our words. Like everything about us needs to match. And I think, unfortunately, there are too many mismatches going on in people. It's like things ain't lining up. And that can prove to be extremely damaging, extremely hurtful, extremely discouraging, and extremely so many other things. And I can be honest and admit I didn't always match. Depending on how close you were to me would determine if you knew how much I matched. But I thank God for a heart that desires to be pure in every aspect of what that word means. And as a result of that, I match more and more and more, because when you're gifted, a lot of times you can get a pass for your character not lining up because of the gift. And I personally think when you're gifted, if anything, you have a greater responsibility. But a lot of times when you're gifted, no one teaches you the responsibility that comes along with the gifting. And I want that to match for me. I want that to match for those who I'm connected to, because if we as believers are supposed to be image and likeness and be like Christ, he matched, his image matched his likeness, matched his words, matched his deeds, everything matched. And we have to do better in matching. And that's not to say we're going to get it right all the time, but there definitely shouldn't be these extremes, and there definitely shouldn't be severe disparities, between our character and our gift, or our character and our words. It's just really unfortunate how gifting has become, the highest order when it should actually be integrity. And our equations are wrong, and how we look at things, and how and who we choose to honor and respect and say, is someone who should be a model or a role model. Our equations are wrong. We've not learned to value what needs to be valued. And we have to know that people aren't disposable. Some people are really a once in a lifetime. And when you lose that, sometimes you might not be able to get it back. And I pray that those who are listening, if there's something that triggers you deeply, that you don't feel shame, in that you don't feel that you're totally out of the will of God as a result of that, but that you take the necessary steps, that you have the conversations, and that you get the instruction and the healing that you need. So the next time, if there's a next time that circumstance or situation comes around, it won't have the same impact that it had previously. And I hope that the next time that you see that a Tear Talk podcast is posted, that you decide to press play.
Thank you for joining the Tear Talk podcast. You can purchase today's featured t-shirt and learn more about MaShani by visiting MaShaniAllen.com. Also, check out her exclusive line of custom journals at bit.ly/The Golden Scribe.